Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about archetypes. See, I've talked a lot about archetypes on this channel in the past, but it's been a while and there's a lot of people around that weren't there then, so I think I should take the time to really just sit down and explain what archetypes are for anyone who isn't aware and why they're so good for the health of Pathfinder 2e overall. Seriously, they're one of my favorite decisions that Paizo made when they were making 2B, and I'm not being hyperbolic with that. So let's get into it, shall we? Before we break down exactly what archetypes are, let's very briefly talk about class feats, since archetypes are closely related to those. So at every even level, every class gets a class feat that they can grab. Martial classes also get one at first level. Normally, you can only grab a class feat from the collection associated with your specific class, and they're all going to be related in some way to the way that class works. Barbarian feats are probably going to be associated with rage and hitting stuff, while wizard feats are probably going to be dealing with casting arcane spells better, or in general just being like a really strong nerd. They're normally not objective power increases, but rather ways to specialize into the concept that each class represents. Archetypes are a way to expand what class feats you can select from. Earlier, I said that you can only grab from the collection associated from your class. So to continue that analogy, if you opt into taking an archetype, then you have access to another smaller but more focused collection of feats that deal with a different concept that is separate from your class. For example, there aren't many barbarian feats that deal with acrobatic maneuvers, so if you want to play a super acrobatic barbarian, you're a bit out of luck with just your normal class feats. However, you can take the acrobat archetype to get a lot more options there to spend your class feats on. The way that you opt into an archetype is simple and universal, by the way. Every archetype's lowest level feat is called a dedication feat, and every other feat in that archetype requires that you have the dedication first. Basically, to take other acrobat feats, you have to first take the acrobat dedication. The only reason why there's a special name for dedications is because you can't grab a dedication feat every level. You first have to grab a couple of feats from any dedication you take before you can take a new one, so you actually have to commit to that archetype before you can grab another one. So yeah, archetypes really aren't that complicated when you sit down and take a look at them. What they provide for 2e as a whole, though, is incredible. Paizo can take character concepts that they believe are really cool and turn them into archetypes if they think that they're too niche for full classes. As an example, being cursed with really bad luck or being really good at juggling stuff isn't really a great basis for an entire class, but they make for great archetypes, with that being the Cursed Maelstrom archetype and the Juggler archetype respectively. Also, it makes for great future-proofing, since archetypes aren't specific to classes unlike in Pathfinder 1st Edition. Any future spellcaster can become a Lich, even though they weren't released whenever Paizo published the Book of the Dead, which has the Lich archetype. Also, technically, any class can actually become a Lich if you have a spellcasting archetype, by the way, which is just really funny to me. Of course, archetypes aren't perfect. While class feats aren't always objective increases in power, they're still normally really good, and how useful archetypes are is gonna vary wildly. Some archetypes, like the Dual Weapon Warrior, are very straightforward and very powerful, and others, like the Pirate, are very underwhelming. Basically, with normal rolls, you might make your character a little bit weaker if you grab an archetype, or you might make them stronger. You just should know that before you decide to grab a particular archetype. And in reality, that difference between a character that takes an optimal archetype and one that takes one on the weaker side isn't going to be massive, but it is there. This is made a little bit more obvious in games that use the free archetype variant rule, which gives everyone an additional feat choice every even level that can only be used for archetype feats. I personally find that free archetype works the best whenever you restrict what archetypes are available so you can match the campaign, or just you give everyone the exact same archetype. But ultimately, what it comes down to is simple. You should just talk to your group like a responsible human and figure things out with clear communication. Some people will use free archetype to make more optimal and powerful characters, and other people will grab silly, fun archetypes that just are fun, that they wouldn't take normally because they're weaker. So you should just talk to your group and see if that will work and everyone's compatible with it. And otherwise, you can find a solution. As it should be obvious by now, I love archetypes. They allow for a truly absurd amount of different character builds in Pathfinder 2e, and they're just fun. If I've got one gripe with archetypes, it's that they aren't really organized well, and to a new player who don't really know what all of them are, it can be very overwhelming to try and find one that actually matches their character the best. There's a ton of archetypes, and decision paralysis is a real thing. When it comes to the actual mechanical implementation of archetypes, though, I've got very few gripes, and way more praise than I could reasonably fit into this video. Thanks for watching. Archetypes are really fun for me to talk about, as you can clearly tell. There is a very good reason why this channel started with me making guides for different archetypes. So let me know down below what your favorite archetype is, and you can also maybe say what is an archetype that you'd love to see in the future, or both, I guess. I'm not your boss. But while you're down there, you can also subscribe to the channel and join up as a member if you want to support me, I guess. And regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.